I love that sound. That's when
Yeah,
you're like, ah, yeah,
it
we're in.
started, man. Yeah. Um,
No turning back.
so you know, I sent you those questions
Yes.
with you. So it's very interesting because you're the first recording I've done with someone who you were a previous artist spotlight of the week. You were one of mine quite a while
What?
back. Yeah, man. So
Oh, you what? You did it. Oh, I'm chuffed. What? Tell me
it was
more.
after I'd seen you because obviously we'd worked together at Chew Fest
Yes.
briefly, and then I saw you in Phaedra, and I think it was the weekend after I'd seen you in Phaedra. I recorded a podcast, and I just knew that you'd done a huge amount of music as well, and you were starting the podcast. I just
Yeah.
think I really respect you for kind of how much of a multifaceted artist I think you are, and it's not always easy because I struggle with that balance of, I try and write, I try and do a bit of music occasionally. But I'm still, that's a big fear of mine. It's a lot of like, I call
Mhm.
music my glorified hobby. Is it, and that's just a fear thing.
Yeah,
Um,
mate, I get that. Like, I was also the same. Last year was a real moment of because obviously doing Phaedra and was such it takes so much of your time.
yeah,
But then I think with music as well, it really was only last year when I like released something that I was like, this could be this is an avenue I had thought of, but now it's opening up to more possibilities and shows and stuff.
yeah,
So it's still I it's not even in like the teething process part of it. I think it's definitely getting legs now, but yeah, it's I appreciate that a lot. It's definitely one that I'm always like a lot of people nowadays like to focus on one thing, you know.
yeah,
I've just never been that person. Just
yeah,
ultimately, I love having different things on, and you know, some people would be like, that is borderline insane, but because you're like, where is free time? But at the same time, it's that's just how my brain works, and I love it because then I can keep coming back to different things as well. Yeah.
yeah. I think problem. Do you ever find it somewhat limiting? Because that's my fear with it is that you have to at some point and at certain times prioritize one thing over another. It's that question of kind of does one suffer for you doing more than one thing? Because it's hard to be
Yeah.
that renaissance man when it comes to creativity, isn't it? It's a real
Yeah.
dream, but I always struggle with the balance with it.
Yeah, I would agree in some aspects because when I was first involving myself with so much with the music and trying to do acting as well, I really didn't realize that I think I get so fixated on when I'm trying to do something, so passionate on one
Mm.
aspect that then I was completely forgetting for some time forgetting about acting for a bit, which was a bit wild to me. But it was the moment I recognized that that was happening, and I just had to really speak with myself and be like, I'm able to do all these things, but I just need to be more mindful. I think a lot of mindfulness came into consideration when I then started. It almost felt like a weird spiral, but at the same time, I was like, my calling has always been acting, and I know
Mm.
that I've just known that from a young age, and but to yeah, so I knew when I was being pulled away from it, but as soon as I felt it, I was like, okay, let's have X amount of time for music, but ultimately the main push is acting, and yeah, the podcast as well we can have as well, but they all kind of coincide now because
Yeah.
I can now edit. I can edit like yeah, it's a great skill to have, but then that also bleeds into show reels and do my voice reels I recently did, so I'm starting
Yeah.
to find they can all actually complement each other,
I
which is really
agree. And it's so because I had no idea about, and that was one of the fears for me about making music was that I had no idea about editing. I had no idea, and I had no idea about how to do a podcast. But you just learn. Everyone has to
yeah,
start somewhere, and you just learn. And I
yeah,
also think it's in a way great because we'll talk about that acting being your calling because it's the same for me. Um,
mm,
but I think one thing I've struggled with at points since leaving drama school is when you get too tunnel visioned on that. It's such a difficult industry mentally. You put all this work in, and often it's out of your control. I think if you
mm,
have those, which you clearly have, you have those other creative passions that you love and that creatively fulfilling you. One, it will only make you a better actor,
yeah,
but
yeah,
two, it'll help you mentally when, you know, because this industry can be tough at times, can't it? It's brutal.
Oh, yeah, yeah, like yeah, of course. And that's a really good point, because I like the aspect of, because I don't know. I think I got to a point where I was so fixated on acting that it then was, I was cutting out relationships, I was cutting out, you know, family time, because I was like, this has to be the only thing. And it was quite hard when it first, because when you first have to really come to terms with, is this actually slightly becoming more detrimental to me, because I'm almost becoming so fixated on it. And it was a real, it was just a real wake up moment where I realized that in order to do the acting, and in order to do all of that, I need to have experienced life. I need to be open to other things going on around me, and I can't, because then I was listening to the Envelope podcast with Ayo Adebri. She's in The Bear, and she was talking about how the well of experience you have, if you don't do all these other things that are away from acting, then you have nothing to tap into. And it really stuck with me, and since then I was like, this, it felt, when I was listening to it, I was like, this, I was meant to listen to this right now, because when it hit me, I was like, yeah, okay, let's start spreading out, you know?
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? You have to have that creative well full enough to kind of take resources from. And if you're just around actors, if you're just obsessed with acting, if that's all you're doing, I mean, the whole point of acting is that you're playing normal people, characters from different backgrounds. If you're only living life as this obsessive actor, you're going to be a really fucking boring actor. Let's face it, really.
Mate, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's not real anymore, because then it's not you are in it. It reverts back to, you know, all respect to the places, but it reverts back to being at drama school.
Yeah,
because you're surrounded by 110% of just acting energy, and if you did it, and it's like, guys, we can be human beings as well, you know.
yeah.
And I think it's just such a key thing. It's like you need to be personable. Because don't get me wrong, there are some people who only focus on acting. They're amazing. However, you know, you can meet some people who just aren't the best with social skills, you know. And I'm a sociable person, and I think for me, I'm like, that doesn't work for myself and who I'm trying to be in this industry. So yeah, I'm starting to pave my own way, you know.
It's interesting because I am also a very sociable person, but I've always found a little bit of social anxiety coming up when I'm in big groups of actors, where say it's a party where it's mainly actors, or it's mainly that there's a certain energy that you get where it's you ask someone, how are you, and they go, yeah, I've just gone up for this, and it's like, I know, I asked how are you, not what you've
No,
just been going up for.
oh
It's
yeah,
like, it's just acting,
I
chat,
get
you know.
that. Of course. And I've now started doing so if someone starts going on to, yeah, well, I did a workshop last week, and then I start reaching my hand out, put my hand on their shoulder, and I'm like, no, how are you? That's what, because we're so prone to do it, because at the same time, it is a weird thing. Sometimes being around a bubble of actors, everyone's kind of in this vein of, oh, everyone wants to know how I'm doing, but how I'm doing professionally. I'm like, no, what did you get up to yesterday? You
Yeah,
know, how is your family? We don't talk about
exactly. Yeah.
you know,
I'd
it's
rather hear about like some as in you say that podcast that came around at the exact time that you were meant to hear it. Like, I love hearing stuff from people's week and things like that, where it's just
yeah,
something that really caught your attention and why it caught your attention, rather
of
than,
course.
I went up for a BBC thing. It's like, great,
It's like,
wonderful, but
that's great. That is, honestly, I'm like, if you're my friend, amazing. But at the same time, I think, in, like you say, in this industry, it becomes almost a thing of, we're always in competition with each other, and that's when it becomes dangerous, because then you don't feel you have any friends anymore. You don't feel you can actually just sit down with people, instead of I literally did it with a friend, and I'll put my hand up to it. I hadn't seen him in several months. We went out for a coffee, and I think my head was all over the place with other things. He literally was like, "How have you been?" And I was like, "Oh yeah. Just did a show." And he was like, "Mate, wow, okay, we're getting into it." And that's when I was like, "Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I've
It's
become
easy
one
to
of them."
do. It's an
Yeah,
automatic response. But it's interesting. Do you find, because I find when I'm in music circles, say I'm gigging or I'm doing that, because I don't know, maybe it's because you're creating your own work.
yeah,
There's a level of not always support, but not like we're in direct competition with each other. It's more like, that's a great song, I wish I'd written that, kind of thing, rather than, but that guy's
yeah.
got this part and that means I didn't get that, I should have been seen for that, you know, all that stuff. Which,
That is really true. Actually, I think performances and live performances, open mics, I just feel there is an energy of everyone's really welcoming to a
Mhm.
sense. You can still meet people in music who are like, well, you've only been doing it for a couple of years.
there's dickheads all through life, you know?
Exactly.
And
It's
it's
like you
usually
can't.
self-esteem issues with people like that. It's like that
Yeah,
level of sort of a sort of snobbery around it. It's like, what's happened to you? Something's hurt you, you know?
exactly. And I find it really interesting because with music, people are more how would you say? People are just more open to, it's not the kind of music they listen to, but they're more willing to actually just enjoy what that ride and what that like
Yeah.
where it takes them.
Mm.
Whereas with acting, you can, yeah, I feel people love to be that critic, or you know, everyone will be like, well done, but I've just got one note for you, and you're like, just can we not just enjoy
Yeah.
the moment? You know,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
find that people become the director a bit too easily
Mhm.
sometimes, and with music, it's like no, people you like music because it makes you feel a certain way. It charges you in such a different way to acting.
Yeah.
That's how I feel, and yeah, I love those spaces as well.
Mhm.
I like
Well,
it
I'd
when
love,
it's mixed, music and actors. That's
yeah,
interesting.
that's fun. People
Yeah,
that do both interest me a lot. And it's
yeah,
interesting. I'd love to share with you how your music made me feel, because you've, as you say, you've released a fair bit in a short, in a couple of years, right? So
yeah.
when did your first single come out? Running was your first one, right?
Oh mate, 10 points. I
He
like,
does
come
his
on, don't, you're
research.
making me blush here, mate. You're making me blush. Yeah, 2020. Wow, when was that? 2022?
Yeah.
2022. Yeah, that
So
was
in
right.
sort of just over you know, a year and a bit, you've got 3 singles and an EP out, which is
Yeah,
amazing. Like,
yeah.
credit to you, because that's not
Thank you.
easy. And so I just wanted to share with you. I found, and I don't know how you feel about this, but there's a huge message of kind of hope and motivation and patience with things I got. And was a line that was like, I think it's in Running actually. No, it was in the first song of your EP, and it's like,
Ooh.
I will get the line wrong, but it's something like, when purpose and prayers align, something like that, that really spoke
Oh,
to me.
perfect timing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing. So I don't know what kind of music influenced you, and how do you, yeah, how do you see your music? Because that's kind of from the outside a lot of the message I got, but that's just a personal thing for me
Thanks,
listening
man.
to it.
Well, yeah. Damn, you know your stuff. I like that. I
Yeah.
like that. I would say with that, firstly, I've got to give a massive shout out to my brother in arms, Rithik and Agula. If you guys don't know, get to know. The guy is an enigma. He is like a star to be, and he is my brother. You know, brother from another mother. And I made that EP with him. We actually started making music in 2020. So he was in Canada, I was in Essex, and we would Skype just to you know do something, be active, and that's when it really charged me with that aspect of like, oh yeah, I I can do this stuff. This is
Yeah.
cool. And I think ultimately that's where it came from. You know, we us two are from such different worlds, but also we've lived very similar lives. It's very eerie at times
Yeah.
because you were like, oh, have you ever experienced this? And Riffic will like finish off the whole sentence of my own lived experience.
It's a gift when
Um,
those people come into your life, isn't it? Sort of out of
yeah,
nowhere. Yeah.
exactly. And I think that's exactly why with that kind of music, what we have been doing, yeah, with the EP, it is a lot about hope. And I think that's what I was brought up on. I think a lot of it stems from, I grew up with my grandparents. My grandpa was a priest back in Nigeria. And I've grown up around a lot of gospel music and a lot of like that energy and that spiritual being and all of that. And I think it definitely bleeds into your later life because that's where my idea of hope comes from, and that's where I'm a sucker for an underdog story. So all of those things kind of like keep pushing me forward, and with it, yeah, that's where I can only make music if it's from a lived experience. So right now it's like, I've been making some. I've got a few things on the way, but it's like right now I haven't really experienced anything as of yet that can make me that I can make something from. Do you
Spark
know?
that creativity. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's one thing I find really freeing about any writing that is short form, like songwriting. I find it with poetry as well. I never have to worry about I don't think about, oh, when am I going to write a song? When am I going to write poetry? I just think if something comes, it'll come and I'll get it down as quickly as possible and then I'll go back and edit it, which is
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
I find
Yeah.
it easier than like long form. I'm pushing through it, but I struggle with like screenplays, plays, all that stuff because my head's just got way too much time to tell me
Yeah.
everything shit, you know?
Yo, mate. Yeah, yeah. Do you get like quite a big inner critic, so to speak,
Yeah.
or is it just that kind of like it's always just there? Yeah.
It's for sure with creativity. And
Yeah.
that's why I find poetry especially, which kind of bleeds into to lyric writing for me, which is I think my strong point really as a musician. I'd love to write lyrics with someone and they do the music is kind of the place I'm trying to go down now. But yeah, that critic isn't there because it's just like this stream of consciousness. It's almost like I remember Jack White said something beautiful about songwriting. He was like, it's nothing to do with you. You just have to sit back and let God in the room. And I loved that quote. And it does feel like, whatever your religious instincts are or aren't,
Exactly. Yeah.
it does feel like something has come to you. Like all the good songs I've written, it's me getting out of the way of myself, you know?
Yeah. 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 And you feel that I think what is so addictive as well when it comes to music is that feeling when you've maybe spent a couple of hours, you've been hashing away at the whatever verse or whatever hook you've been trying to get, or even trying to perfect a melody, and then when it's almost that moment like that happens instantaneously after. It's kind of like, oh my good, like I can't explain it, but every
Yeah,
time I feel that, I'm like, okay, yeah,
it's electric.
yeah, it's almost out of body experience with it.
Mm.
So it's just I think I like that as well. It's finding time to really just allow yourself to accept what's about to happen.
Yeah.
And right now I haven't had that time, but like I'm waiting for it. Oh boy,
Yeah.
I'm waiting for
And it'll be
it.
good when it comes. And as you say, you're
Of
filling
course.
the creative well in other ways. And
Yeah.
that's just how it goes. Tell me about your influences musically.
Music. Oh mate, where do I begin? Wow. I
It's
would
always
say
difficult, isn't it? I always get asked that question. I'm like, well, there's not really any genre I don't like or know a little bit about or enjoy someone's music from that genre. But it's like,
yeah.
I guess when someone asks you that, it's like, well, what do you gravitate to mostly and who? Yeah.
Mate, I grew up on a lot of like Motown, Luther Vandross, like we're talking like, Aretha Franklin, Nina Simone,
Yeah.
like that's where I that's where the roots are deep, you know.
Yeah.
Um um
Nina Simone, man. Jesus.
exactly.
Just,
Like sometimes I would just say that so people are like, yeah, just say
yeah.
it.
There's this weird thing with Nina Simone's voice, and I didn't know how to put it into words when I first heard her when I was young, but it's like this this mixture of pain and joy, this weird rejoicing, which I think you get from a lot of blues music as well. That weird, unexplainable mix of pain, but also this rejoicing.
Yeah.
that I find in her voice. She doesn't even have to say it; it's just in her voice.
Yeah, you hear it, and it's just so it's like you can listen to it's a new dawn, it's a new day, but then you listen to Strange Fruits, and just the actual polarity of
Yeah,
how it's still the same woman, like it's still the same woman we're talking
yeah,
about here, but she takes you on a whole different experience.
so
And
true.
obviously, yeah, contextually with the songs so different, but it's just, yeah, like you say, the way she can I always cry when I listen to Strange Fruits. That's
Mm.
one of those like gems that if I ever need to like get a bit teary eyed for something,
Yeah,
hits me every
it's
time.
so true. Yeah, that kind of polarity between a song like Strange Fruit and then the song like I can't remember the name of it, but where she's saying I've got my arms, got my legs, you know, freedom, I've got
Yeah,
like just rejoicing in life and the things we take for granted and stuff. It's like two completely different artists, but it's the same artist. She
yeah.
was amazing. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you, but I just wanted to talk about Nina Simone for a bit.
No,
So
hey, I
more
like
interruptions on
minded.
the way. So
Of course. But that was a lot of that was me growing up. But then I think once I got into my teenage years and rap really took over, like with I mean Tupac, Biggie. I would say more Biggie. I know that's always such a big conversation. And then went into Eminem, Lil Wayne, J.
so
Cole
it
was a big
started with American rap. Is that
yeah,
yeah,
so
kind of hip hop
yeah,
and stuff. Yeah,
more
cool.
American
Yeah.
based stuff. I think when I got into like my first UK artist I listened to who did rap was Skepta, and that was
Right.
what 2000s, and then he dropped the 2009 album, which
Mhm.
was phenomenal, like Microphone Champion, I believe. Ginger, like all of it, like this was like back in school as well. So
Yeah, early
you
we're
know,
how old
yeah,
are you? Are we similar age? I think we're quite
yeah.
similar
I'm
age.
27. I had to think
Yeah,
about
I'm 29, so we're a couple of years off.
it.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that's yeah, that era, you know, you're like, oh, 1 second. Let me turn that off. Yeah, there we go. Mike was about to die. I was like, and see you later. But yeah, just that era of like the MP3s or the iPods, or people were sending songs via Bluetooth. And,
Bluetooth, year seven, Bluetooth. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it was like that was the cool thing. It was like I've heard this song. Let me give me your phone, Bluetooth.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that was really it. And then I think that's what bled me more into more like UK based music. Professor Green was a big part of my growing up.
Cool.
I really, yeah, I was really into Professor Green back in the
Mm.
day. I just love, I love rappers and artists who have phenomenal lyrics. I like that stuff. And
Mhm.
then through that, I found Dave, and
I was
Dave,
literally just about to say lyrics like Dave for me
Dave, yeah,
encapsulates he's a poet, man.
yeah. He is literally a modern day bard. If you don't agree, I don't
Like a
want to
song like Three Rivers, something like that. It's just
be
beautiful. Ooh.
exactly. And yeah, and I think that's the thing. That's what really got me interested in being like, wow, if I could back in the day, I was like, oh, if I could like be a rapper or do this, I would love to be able to make lyrics that people can connect with, like little similes here and there from my childhood, because that's how it's done best. But then also just being able to, I think there's such a skill in doing it that I'm still on my way of working out. But like the way people like Dave can do it so effortlessly
Mm.
with like rhythm change and the way they hit
Yeah.
certain explosives. Oh, I get very scientific about rap now.
In
Yeah.
terms of like, because that's one of the things that kind of blows my mind about some of these rappers, that the kind of rhythmic stuff. And Kendrick Lamar for me is one of those.
Mm.
There's a song on To Pimp a Butterfly, I can't remember which one, where it's literally like it's like jazz music. How he is there was that old, people when kind of American based rap first came out, it's like, oh, it's not music, it's just rhythm. It's like, if you're saying it's not music, that's a musician. Like Kendrick
Yeah.
Lamar on that song. I can't remember which one it is now. I'll look in a minute,
Oh,
but
wait.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm
but
trying to
it's
think. Yeah, it's insane. I think that's it, because you're looking at these people who are like, I think that's when stuff really became less about this is just rap and that 90s kind of era. And now rappers or artists, as I just would call everyone, it's like they're taking it to a whole new level. It's like
Mm,
rap was never meant to just be one thing. It encapsulates so much more. You know, it
yeah.
comes from so much influences as well. So it's just it's yeah. I think it's just been really cool to see that progression,
Mm.
especially being from like our generation as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this, but I think someone like Dave, and maybe it's because I don't know enough kind of UK hip hop scene as much as I should.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt someone like him is really, when I first heard the song like Psycho and it cuts to that bit reckless, arrogant, battling with manic
Yeah.
depression, like that drop. So I was like, I remember the first time I listened, I was like, oh, this is something different. And I feel people like him, and I'm sure it goes back further, but there's a vulnerability
Mm.
that maybe wasn't in early American hip hop that much,
Mm.
that he is encapsulating, that I think is a really beautiful arc with the genre that he's kind of going down.
Yeah, I do get that. I would give a counter in a sense of there are some, because if you like going all the way back, I know it's such a well-known song, but Eminem Stan, that I think those are like
Yeah.
elements of when that thing started, because it wasn't that anyone knew what it was. Everyone was just like, oh, it's Eminem doing his thing. But
Mm,
when you really then look back at it, you're like, this was paving the way in a sense for how rappers and artists are now being able to be more upfront about,
mm,
I'm not just talking about girls and clothes and cars. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a human being.
yeah.
Um, even with that Dave album, the whole thing is orchestrated as if it's a whole therapy session, which is like it's
Genius.
mind blowing.
Yeah.
There's a few songs on there that are a tearjerker, man. You can't even lie. I think he goes in on some that you're just like, I can't even you can't listen to it just normally anymore. Yeah.
No.
Same with Kendrick with his new album. I think it was so raw, and I think that's why it was so divisive, because a lot of people weren't expecting Kendrick to go down that route. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And
That bit, I mean, that album, I think, is actually one of my favorite Kendrick albums. And the final bit where it's like him talking to his kid, and it's like that, it's about that breaking the generational trauma and him
yeah,
finally facing his demons. I just think
yeah,
that current throughout the album is beautiful. And yeah, as you say,
yeah.
yeah,
It's lovely stuff. I think it's beautiful to I think it's a very brave thing to do. And also I would question people who are so quick to be like, oh, that's not music though. Oh, that's not my thing. It's like, fine if it's not your thing, but if I ask you why and you're not able to explain, then is it really the music, or is it something you've yet to unpack or
that's a
explore
really interesting
in
thought. Yeah.
yourself?
Is that a
But
trigger? Yeah.
you know what I mean? I leave that to the naysayers. Really, I just
Yeah.
I love things that really push the box of what rap is, or what poetry is, or what that kind of element is, and I'm like,
Mm.
I'm here for it, as long as as long as I get to be a part of it too.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. What do you see in an ideal world? And I know you're going to keep grinding and keep working as you have been already,
Mm.
but what do you see? What would you like your impact on music to be in an ideal world? What kind of work do you want to create? It's
Damn.
a really hard question. I'm sorry.
No, it's a good question. You got Now I've actually got to like, yeah. I would always want people to come back if 20, 30 years from now, I would want people to come back and look at the discography of work, and just I would want people to have that burst of warmth, of that familiarity as well, because I think I'm such a big person of like, I want, when I meet people, I want people to leave feeling like, wow, I
Mm.
felt seen, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a big thing for the music that I want to be making. I want people to feel seen, but I also want people to be accepted for that, and that makes them feel good. I love feel good music, and there's so many ways you can do that through rap, and I think that's definitely something I want to explore. And even if it's not rap, R&B, funk, other aspects, but I just want people to always come back and be like, they can all instantly connect with what I'm trying to like push through my lyrics and push through the sound that I'm making. So yeah, this year's an experimental one, so we'll have to wait and see for that one, you know.
Well, I
Yeah.
can't wait to see what's going to happen, mate. Big year, 2024.
Big.
I would. Are there challenges, like in terms of actual technical challenges of performing live when it comes to rap music? Just because I find, even if you say if you're in a rock band, it's hard enough getting a mix right where
Mm.
the singer can be heard, let alone when it's just you're not even singing. It's like it's your voice, and I always find it there's a real fine balance when I have gone to rap shows and stuff, and it can
Mm.
just get lost. And so, how do you deal with that as a performer? How do you try and think about that and counteract that a little bit?
Yo, yeah, mate. I'm not gonna lie. That's when the acting kicks in. A lot of breath work.
Yeah.
I'm one of them. I like my lyrics, so it's like when I'm doing like stuff into like running and all that stuff. It's like I will have probably been doing a solid bit of breath work before, because I'm not one to put the whole song in the background and you hear the lyrics in the song. I get some people, some rappers do that and whatnot, but at the same time, I'm just like, no, that's not. I'm not
Yeah.
paying to see you recite it like that. I want to hear you
Mhm.
right now where you're at. I want
It be
you
a
to
live performance, as you say, like in that moment, it's different on that night, and I got to see it.
exactly. There's only one time I'll ever get to see like this, and it's now. You know, so I would definitely do that, but I would also, yeah, I think I just do a lot of I just prep. I'm always such, because it's a performance, it's a whole spectacle. You want people to be like, oh, this is the energy you give like live, then of course I have to go like hear more from you, do you know? I think that's such a feeling. It's almost that feeling like, you know, those old school chewing gum adverts when people are like, oh, that. You know what I mean?
I didn't see that coming, but I like that analogy.
Yeah, like Wrigley's Extra or something. That
Yeah.
like that feeling. Yeah, I want people going away like that when they've seen
Yeah.
a live performance. You know.
Yeah. You mentioned Biggie earlier, and
Yes.
this is a difficult question to answer as well, but because it's so subjective, I suppose. Um, I've always said that I think in terms of actual delivery and how he performs and how he sounds, Biggie is the best rapper for that. For me, in terms of like how it actually sounds, his delivery of the lines. I'm not saying his lyrics or whatever. I'm saying just
Mm.
in the delivery. For me, it's Biggie Smalls. But what do you think about that? Who's your
Ah,
favorite?
I see. I'm gonna be cancelled for the no. No. Yeah, but I think that it's always interesting because it's like everyone has their way of how they were tapped into that era.
Mm,
And ultimately, I was tapped into it through my uncle back in Nigeria. Like he liked that kind of laid back, cool kind of rap. And then I think seeing Biggie and the persona he delivered, it was just so, this guy seemed so nonchalant, you know? He was so like, yeah, man, you know, like he was doing it for his people, his community. Um, and I just love the way he was able to do it without even looking like he was really, really trying. You know,
yeah, I think
I
he's like
cool
the
as a cucumber.
swan where it just seems effortless, and then under the surface, the legs going
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. And I
Yeah,
think that, like, seeing that as like a young kid, you're like wide eyed, like, what is this?
yeah.
That's when I got fixated, and I found Tupac later on, and I think it's a tricky one because it's like I love Biggie's nonchalant, but then there are some Tupac songs that I'm like, yeah, his when you hear the message he's really pushing, he
Mhm.
has a very like strong way of doing that.
He's more poetic, I would say,
Of
in
course,
terms of his lyrics and stuff.
of
Yeah,
course, but
yeah.
I think, but overall, that kind of, yeah, I'd always try to focus on being the swan if I was
Mhm.
ever a rapper, like focus on being that, like making it look like I'm not doing a lot, but yet there is so much
Yeah,
going
yeah,
on behind the
yeah.
scenes. Yeah.
It's the same for like great singers often because it's so technical, but they've kind of mastered that and the effort. It just look they make the effortful look effortless.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, like, I mean, come on, you look at my mum used to love Pavarotti. Like, I was
Mm.
watching this guy and I was like, wait, so all of that noise is coming from a hit, but the guy would look like he's not like he's going for it, and you see his like uvula like
Yeah.
actually vibrating, but he wasn't breaking a sweat. It was
Yeah.
it's phenomenal, and I think to be at that level is just something to really like, to with that to behold. Oh my god,
I
yeah, I would.
had a mate that was a musical director, and he was as often musical directors are, like real kind of singing nerd. He loved the intricacy of it. He loved the technicalities of it. And he always used to say about Pavarotti, he said, it's so annoying, he said, because I can look at like the other two of the three tenors, like Jose Cabreras and Placido Domingo. He's like,
Mm.
they're amazing, but I can see what they're doing. I can see where the power's coming from. I can see what technically they're doing. That can't see it with Pavarotti. It's really aggravating. Like this power, I don't know where it comes from, and
Yeah.
it just boggled his mind. To be fair.
I'm not. Yeah, of course, and that's exactly it. You're like, how are you doing this? Like,
Yeah,
and the state and the places you were filling out were just insane. It's yeah.
crazy.
No,
Yeah.
that's like the mountaintop. That's like the mountaintop vision, man.
Mm.
Genuinely. Wow.
We could talk
Yeah.
about music for so long, and we'll come back to it, I'm sure. But
Oh yeah.
to tell for the listeners kind of your journey into, because I'd already left LAMDA by the time you started, but we both trained at the same place.
Mhm.
So what was your journey into, that North Star for you, which is always, as you say, going to be the acting? Like that's your, main thing and the thing that
Yeah.
got you into this. And how, yeah, just tell me your journey into it.
Sure, man. Yeah, I always like this one because I'm just very straight up and honest. I started I started acting through weekend classes,
Yeah.
but ultimately back in primary school there was a girl that I really liked, and she did acting. And
It's so
I,
often the way, isn't it?
yeah, and I know, like I always laugh because then I have to remember, like, I was like, what is this thing? Because I was playing football, I was playing bulldog. If people don't know, like
Oh,
bulldog and in at
jeez.
lunchtime was the stuff like that. I
Blast
was a
from the
physical guy,
past.
swimming, all of that. And then I was like, acting, I don't know. And then I remember when she used to go to the classes, and I was just so I think I was more fixated on like, yeah, cool. If she likes this, then let's give it a go. And that's when I started it. So it kind of it started from there, but I think the real wake up call was when I was in secondary school. And shout out my drama teacher, Miss Allen. She was a legend. She is still a legend in my
Yeah.
eyes as well. But we went to see Blood Brothers, the musical, and I was in buckets of tears at the end. B, I was like in my blubbering. I was like, who, what is, what is this thing they've just done on this stage? And yeah, and that was when I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Like that is so cool. And from then on, met a good mentor of mine, Joey. She runs JD Young Company. Believe they're still in Southend as well. But yeah, she really honed that belief first of all, and also just honed that idea of like you can do it, because this was still back in that day. There wasn't a lot of people like me at drama schools, or I had David Oyelowo, I had Chiwetel Ejiofor to look up to, like Denzel, of course, but he was in America. But Idris back in the day, yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that was really the wake up call that I had through Joey and Mrs. Allen to be like, no, you should seek this out.
Mm.
And through that, I just kept working, and went to Staffordshire Uni to do acting as well, which was an interesting thing because don't get me wrong, unis are great, but for acting, it comes from such a theoretical side.
Yeah.
And that was something I had to really unlearn at drama school to like shake out the theory of it and just being within my body. But it was a really cool training that I had there. And apart from that, and from then my teacher in final year was like, you need to apply for drama school. You need to apply for drama school. And I was thinking, I've done 3 years already. Do I really need to? Is it? And he was like, trust me, you might regret it. Like,
Yeah.
and that's all he said to me. So I by chance I was like, okay, let me just all right, we're doing Othello now. Cool. Let's apply. I only applied for LAMDA. I was like, listen, if I don't get into LAMDA, so be it. Okay. And yeah. And then you get
He
that
got
love
in.
you
He
get that
got
lovely
in.
call. That did you get the call from Rodney back in
From
the day?
Rodney, I remember it's one
My
of the most
goodness.
vivid memories in my life. I ran down the garden and punched the air as if I'd like won the Champions League or something. It was mad.
Get in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I ran out of rehearsal because I got the call and I was like, wait. And he's like, oh, hello. He goes, this is Emmanuel. I'm like, yeah, hello, who's it? He's like, yeah, hi, it's Rodney. Yeah, so unfortunately, you're going to have to like sign your life away to us now. And I was like, for a second, I was like, oh, he's just told me I'm not getting in.
Yeah,
Don't know why. But then I was like, oh my goodness, yes, where do I sign? I'll
yeah.
sign in blood if I have to. It was a real like, oh yeah, that moment it will always stay. And yeah,
Yeah.
and that's how I got into LAMDA, man. It's crazy. Yeah.
Before I ask you about how you found the training, you
Mhm.
mentioned that yeah, obviously growing up, you didn't see as many people that look like you going to drama school. So I guess when you don't see that, you don't. There's a part of the culture that thinks it's not possible and it's not something that someone like me would do. Do you think that's getting better now as we are seeing like a lot more diversity at drama schools? Do you think it's most kids, like Black British kids who wanted to
Mhm.
go to drama school, wouldn't think it was such a weird thing to do, maybe?
Yeah. So it's very I was having this conversation a couple of days ago as well. And from when I was still applying and looking at drama schools, there were there was like Jonathan Ajayi and Samuel Adebayo, like that. These were the people I was seeing on like the LAMDA
Mm.
websites, and I think at the time, yeah, I would say now things are getting better, but the reason I'm so tentative is because I just worry that sometimes I just worry that things aren't just being used as like a tick box, you
Yeah.
know,
Mm.
and and I think it's that there's a big difference between just saying if we up the quota for Black British people, great, but at the same time, it's like, but then what is the training actually developing with that, or
Hmm.
is that now being put to the wayside to then be to almost showcase this? But look at all the change we're making and all the
Yeah.
change we're doing, but then you're then disregarding all the training at the same time.
Mhm.
You need to be able to find both. It needs to be in a balance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think both at an industry level and at a training level, it's kind of more about practices rather than just quotas, isn't it? Because I
Yeah.
see a lot, even more so personally, anyway, from the outside, I see even more so in the industry than in drama schools, where it does feel sometimes like you're just ticking a box so you look good rather than actually doing something that you're caring about and you're actually making an effort to understand or
Yeah.
champion these stories, I guess.
Yeah. And I think, and it bleeds into even just aspects of the training. It's like there are so much like world playwrights, that we've never ever explored, which don't get me wrong, it would be great. It's great with what happens now and what they learn, but it's like there's so much of like other playwrights that we've never touched upon
Mm.
who are as amazing but aren't European. Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Mhm.
So yeah, um, I do believe changes are being made, and sometimes it needs to be in such a way that it feels like, whoa, this has all come out of nowhere. But I am also just mindful of I don't want people thinking, oh well, but so much change has happened. It's like, well, not really.
Mm.
We've just up the quota per se. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a fine line with that, I say. Yeah.
So what would you like to see change? I know it's hard. I mean, I know it's a massive issue, but like I say,
Mm,
say you can say, oh well, look how much is changing, but actually not really. Well, what change
mm.
do you think needs to be made?
I feel it is a thing of, see, a lot of the changes being made are from the lower level aspects of drama schools. I feel these are changes that need to be made at the head of some of these places. I know Central went through their changes. even aspects of like the National Theatre has just appointed their new head after Rufus will leave. And
Mm.
I think these are the moments where it's like, okay, but because these people of color are now coming into these establishments, it's like this is where from the top it can trickle down, because I feel that's just how it is with the UK. A lot of it has to trickle down, and if it doesn't, then at the bottom we're doing all these big changes, but yet at the top it's still a bit, it's still a bit exclusive, so to
Yeah.
speak,
Mm.
because the
Yeah,
voices aren't being heard. Yeah.
there's always been this, especially in UK theatre for time immemorial. It's always felt like a little bit of exclusivity, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Generally, in terms of So I was good. This is a question I've actually written down, and that I think moves into this quite well. So, as you say, there's been on the surface massive shifts at drama school over the last. So I started training in 2013,
Mm.
and it's like a different LAMDA is a different place now. It's completely different. I saw a very interesting and quick shift actually from one year to the next, because I had to retake my third year. I wasn't well, so when I came back, it's like, oh, I'm on this crest of a wave that's happening where change is kind of coming.
Yeah.
um I suppose, what do you think we've gained from that, but also what do you think we've lost? Because I think with any change there's always going to be, because there's a reason why I think British actors do so well in the Academy Awards and stuff, is because we've got this massive theatre history and this training that is so robust.
Mm-mm-mm.
And I suppose my question is just, I see what my training was like when I started it and how it is now, and there's been changes for good and changes for bad, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that? Kind of what you think we've gained, what you think we've lost, along with the gain that needed to happen?
Hmm. It's a I yeah, I think what as soon as you mentioned it, I think it goes back to like the elements of what the training really is doing.
Mm,
The During the time I was there, we lost quite a lot of teachers as well. Some teachers who were, I think, for the better word, I think they a lot of people had been there long enough, but at the same time, to do it in such a way which it was almost like a culling of
mm,
like teachers who were experts, who had been like almost dipped in this knowledge. I think it was such a weird way to go about it. And yeah, I think in good aspects, a lot of people have been able to see drama schools as more approachable. The
mm,
mysticism of it has slightly faded, which has been a really good thing to see, especially for younger actors, and not just actors of color. I just think people from working class backgrounds. I'm not a middle upper class. No, like I single parent, all of that stuff, and I think it's a lot more people see it as more accessible than
mm.
how it used to be. But at the same time, yeah, I just believe that I just worry about the training itself is not being diluted, but things are not as concentrated as they used to be, because it's almost like there's too much focus on making sure that all the actors are like are good and
That's
okay, and
so interesting, because
you know
I completely agree, and I
it's
think
eggshell. It's slightly eggshell for
slightly
me.
eggshell, and I think
Yeah,
it's my this is my theory on it, is that I
sure.
think, obviously, if you're paying all this money to train and you're going to be saddled with debt for all your life and all that stuff, the institution, whatever institution it is, has a duty of care and all that stuff.
Of
I
course.
feel, though, and I think it started actually in American institutions at American universities, I think the students took over in some way. And
Yeah.
what happens when that happens is you get discipline starts to go down. When there's no authority figure in any way,
Mm.
that's where trouble happens. I mean, you look at anything like a band or a football team is a good is a good example. Like, if the manager doesn't have some authority, that football team's going to fail. When the like, I support Man United. What's been happening at Man
I
United?
support Man United, and let's
I
like,
knew I
I
liked
as
you,
soon as you
Emmanuel.
said it, I was like, I pray he doesn't support Arsenal or
Yeah,
something
no,
because
no.
he's gonna
But you see, this
chastise
is
me. But yeah,
multiple times the players have taken over, and look
yeah.
what it is. It's an absolute shit show.
Look at Jadon Sancho.
Yeah, completely. And
Simple.
I think I'm glad you said that, because I sort of feel bad saying it in some way, but it does feel like, I think one of the great things about UK theatre, and therefore UK actors generally, is that there was always this discipline, there was this rigor in the training. There was, and
Mm,
sometimes obviously it probably went too far. There are stories of that, and I'm not denying
yeah.
that. But it's like,
Mm,
when the students take over and you have no authority as a teacher and a creative yourself, I think that's a problem, and it becomes more of a sort of political society than a creative endeavor sometimes. I think drama
yeah.
school can sometimes teeter on that edge a little bit, and it's
Yeah.
always got to be about the art before anything else.
And I think, and you hit the nail on the head, because I obviously was at drama school during COVID time. I graduated in 2021, and I enjoyed aspects of it, but I think things what it was that things got too, you needed to not only come into this place 9 till 5 to do, prepare for Shakespeare or prepare for a show, but then you also needed to like wear your political stance
Mm.
out for the whole world to see. So then people would, and I think it became less about, just wanting to be willing to go to these places, and became more about like, yeah, but are you, are you on my side? I don't, before I say something wrong, I just felt it became a lot us v them. And if you
Yeah,
didn't have the same similar standing as the people, or like certain students who had quite a big say in the school, you weren't really validated. And that is when things become a bit tricky, because
yeah.
then you're playing this, not only is that imposter syndrome now coming back, but now you're also like, am I the problem, when even though I have no idea how I'm learning as much as these people,
Yeah.
as my peers.
It has to be a dialogue, and I think that's one of the major issues in the political, um, you know, talk at the moment, is that you either think this way, or you're either with us or against us, kind of feeling. And actually,
Yeah.
no one should have the same view on every single point. It's like, it shows that you haven't actually looked into it. If name an issue and I know exactly where you stand on it, that's
Yeah,
you just kind of plodding along with an ideology because you've been told
exactly.
it's the right one to take.
And exactly, and there are aspects where you can all have a unified agreement on, but at the same time, I really do believe that aspect of what theatre was then lost as a result, because if you had an opposing view, then it just wasn't paid attention to or anything. And I think it was just it became a bit wild to then be like, well, but that's where theatre, that's where art actually strives from. We have to have these
It's that
divisive
it's the
things.
conflict and the figuring it out. I mean,
Yeah,
drama is conflict by
yeah,
nature. Yeah,
yeah.
I couldn't
And
agree more.
yeah, I definitely believe that, unfortunately, that aspect was lost, because people, and also COVID was a rough time. Everyone really wanted to just make sure that stability was not only within themselves but within their surrounding area. And because all these kids from different walks of life were coming into this one establishment, I think then the drama school then it had to be structured in a way for the students to feel safe.
Yeah,
And
that
it
must have been a
was
batshit time to be at drama school, I have to say.
it had its ups and downs. I remember doing, if you remember Lizzie, I remember doing cat cow in my living room in Essex. It was like, we're doing
Yeah,
movement in All Blacks, and it was like, no one knew, this was unprecedented. No one had any idea this would happen.
I thought it was an absolute shocking thing that anyone that went to university or drama school during that time paid the same amount of fees as I did when I went as well, for not the same training, not the same
Yeah.
level of face-to-face training. It was, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that as well didn't help the fact of things becoming a lot more like now let's make a political stand on it, because then it felt like there was less training and more like I was now having to fine read contracts that I'd signed to come to drum. Do you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
became more
yeah.
of, not a, I just became more of like a political, like, mouthpiece rather than yeah, I think that became quite a big part of it.
Mm.
You had to have this say on it, or else if you didn't, then it's like, oh, you clearly don't care about. Yeah, it
Yeah.
just became a bit too convoluted for me.
Mm. Yeah, I stopped working at LAMDA a while back. I
Mm.
used to work kind of occasional shifts at the bar and stuff because I just felt it got to a point where I was like, I need to be out of this building, you know. It's like, but a mate of mine, a very close mate of mine, has continued working there quite a bit, and he he kind of shares stories of stuff that, if we'd have done this at drama school, we'd have been, on our last warning kind of thing, and
Yeah.
it was seems something so simple, but he said, like someone came in at sort of 10 past 9. They had started at 9 with a coffee that they'd obviously brought in, gone and bought, so they weren't in that much of a rush. And we're like, oh, where's this? Is it E5 or is it this? He was like, oh, it's E3. All right, and just strolled off. I mean, I'd have been in a cold sweat running to well, shit,
Mission Impossible.
yeah, I wouldn't have been let in. I wouldn't have been let into the class. I'd have been out for the rest of the day. And there's something about that level of rigor that I think, especially in theatre, you need that discipline. It's a hard
Thousand.
thing doing 8 shows a week, doing all that stuff, working in an ensemble.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit sad if we've lost that. Um,
Yeah. And I think with every cloud has a silver lining, because then you have aspects of, yes, okay, there are students here where mental health is actually quite a big thing that needs to be discussed, but it
mm,
was overlooked.
yeah,
But however, I then don't believe people should, it's not to exploit it, but I just feel people, yeah, that kind of, like you say, the discipline for then other people, like, oh well, if they get to do these things, which you had no idea what these meetings they were talking about were. It's like people just start strolling in,
yeah.
people's like on it, the edge that sometimes drama school
Mm.
had is gone, and then I just worry how big that jump might be from drama school to the industry.
Yeah,
you know
because
yeah, it's because it is quite a big jump. It is quite a big jump, because once you then leave this place that you've been so invested in, it's up to you to wake up every morning on time,
mm,
to actually get this work done, to actually go and reach out to workshops or whatever. But if you've already, and I feel that's why I worried about drama school, because it's like, if you're not being disciplined in such a way, then what happens when that like 9 to 5 rigor stops, and then it's like it's up to you, your own free will. But you've had 2 3 years of just
yeah.
like, I'll just turn up whenever I want. I won't turn up to this lesson just because.
And
Yeah,
I'd like to think, if you did that in the industry, that you would soon be found out and probably wouldn't work again. But
yeah.
I don't know. I
It
mean,
becomes less about the collective, and it's kind of masked as like, no, but this is for its inclusivity, and all these words start coming into the forefront. And
mm,
I'm also, but then I got to a point where it just felt like it was more individualism, and it was like,
yeah,
I'll do it because I feel like it, or I'll do it because and it was like, but then that's not theater, that's
no,
not
exactly.
film even, that's just, you can, yeah, I don't really know what medium
Mm.
that ties into, really.
Well, it's clearly something that you really care about, is that kind of ensemble thing. Because even with your music, you're working with other people, you're writing with other people, you're recording with other people. That clearly is something and that's the reason I wanted to get into theater, especially,
Mm. Yeah, because who wouldn't love it when you go? I always used to see it as my brothers and sisters in arms. Like, we are going into the void all together. We can like look each other in the eye and be like this is going to be our process that we share and experience together. And we're going to boldly do it with that fear, but we turn that fear into like this, like unadulterated, just like sheer determination. I've
Yeah.
always been about that, because
Mm.
that's really what inclusivity that people love to say is about. We don't need to keep saying it. it's just a being, it's just a feeling. And if you don't have that, I've been out of drama school enough to recognize it with people, and even not just music and acting. It's just like, yeah, if you don't have that drive in that certain way for me, then it's like, okay, that's cool, but we're just not
Cool, but we're not going to work together. So yeah,
we're not of
yeah,
the same
yeah,
flock. Yeah.
absolutely. And it's, you know, as I've said, I've sort of really respected you from afar for a long time now, because it's something I'm still figuring out, that how to do multiple things, and try not, I think it's your courage with it to kind of go, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to start from the ground up, and I'm going to record 3 singles and an EP in you know, just over a year. Whereas
Mm.
I've been kind of, with my music, I've played live a lot, but I've been saying I'm going to record this single for so long, and it's just fear, and it's perfectionism, which is just another word for fear, really,
Mm.
of like, oh, I'm scared of not being good enough. Whereas I've never had that with acting. Acting is always like, I know I can do this, I know my shit, I know what I'm doing. But it's
Yeah.
with other stuff, um it's just hard, and I'm working through it. I'm working through that fear and trying to push through it. But yeah, I always
Awesome.
respected them.
I'd love to hear your stuff as well. I think
Yeah.
and I think that's I'm a perfectionist at heart too. I think it just got to a point where it was like, the only person who will ever be able to, I've forgotten who told me this, but they were like, the only person, if you keep these songs and you keep these like flashes of creativity and whatnot within yourself or within your vault, the only person that ever gets to even experience just a sliver of that is you. You know,
Yeah.
no one like, and that then that's it. You know, like you can, you just have, yeah. I think that it just scared me, and I was like, listen, if it's terrible, people will tell me whatever, but regardless, it's out there. I've done
Yeah.
it. It's out there now. You know, and we'll see what happens. So
Yeah.
I
I
think
think
that gives a bit of hope and confidence, if that helps at all.
it does. It does. And I think I now am really in a place where I'm trying to just work against those that self-critic, and kind
Yeah.
of realize it's not true, and I'm at least making the work now, um and I'm pushing through it, even if that inner critic is firing up.
Mm.
For years I wasn't doing enough of the work, because I had so much perfectionism and so much fear that it just kind of made me not do it. And I saw this
Mm.
quote this week that I thought was really interesting. It was a writer, I can't remember who, but but he was saying, I didn't really start writing seriously until I was 35, he said, but I'd spent 15 years
Yeah.
going, oh, I should have written today. Oh, I didn't write today. And then he said, I woke up one day and I realized, do you know what? Investment bankers don't think to themselves in bed every night, oh, I should have written today. It's like, I'm thinking those thoughts because I'm a fucking writer. So I'm going to write. And I thought
Yeah.
that was really
Yeah.
good.
Exactly.
It's that
That's
guilt
good.
you feel when you don't create. It's like, oh, I'm a creative then, and I need to channel that.
Yeah. It becomes, that is fuel. The way that we eat food or know that I should drink water now. I don't know. I think it gets to a point, like like yourself with the music as well. Yeah. You then realize that maybe this is my fuel, because if I don't
Mm,
do this, then I'm depriving myself of something. And sometimes you won't even recognize it. But when you have those kind of things, it's like, hey, let me just try it and see what happens. And then you're like, oh, so that's the thing I've been missing the past
yeah,
couple of months.
yeah,
Yeah,
completely
yeah.
agree. Now, this next one
Go
is,
on.
when you get asked it, I think people kind of go, "Oh, it's a bit much," but actually take it as a free reign of freedom. So I'm going to ask you this thing: what kind of career, if I could wave a magic wand and I could say, and any career you want, what does it look like? What do you envision in your mind? Um, yeah, I've got a magic wand. It will
Okay.
be.
Okay. Hey, listen, I saw Shooting Star this year, so I'm like, I'm very mindful of this. I'm like, okay, this is, wow, that's a question there. My ultimate thing, for if I had, like, you had the magic wand, I would definitely say it's a career that doesn't exist just in one medium. So not just, oh, I want to be a theater actor, I want to be a film actor, I want to be able to have done it all. I want to have been able to experienced all of that. I think I also want one that I'm I'm just about longevity now.
Mm.
I'm just about the idea of like being able to not just be like, oh yeah, because if I fixate on just being, oh, I want to be the lead in a show or be the lead in a theater project, it's like cool. But then when I do get that thing, then what happens next?
Yeah.
I would want something that I have a career that's like Morgan Freeman's, that's like been in the industry for decades, has
Mm.
done a plethora of things, but yet still able to come to each project with like with new opened eyes. And yeah, be it if that's recognized via accolades or um personal or like people close to me, like the respect of my peers. I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, if I'm able to still do that thing I've always enjoyed and that thing I started loving from I was a teenager, that in itself is a privilege. And yeah, I can't I push for that. I'm 80 on my yacht and I've got you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I did that.
I
I
did
did
it.
that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
went out bravely into the arena and I fought. Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason I ask people that is because I think when people get asked that question, you can think of it inside and you can envision what you truly want to achieve in this life, but you feel sort of stupid sometimes saying it out loud because I think our whole, I mean, it's kind of a capitalist thing, isn't it? Of thinking, oh, well, it won't happen for you kind of thing. It's that
Yeah.
mentality. And I think speaking it out loud, actually, fuck it. That's what I want. And it makes, there's
Yeah.
a tangibility to that. So
Yeah.
thank you for your honesty with that. Because
No, man, you got me thinking today. I'm like, yeah, man. Oh wow,
trying to get
longevity.
good at this podcast shit.
I'm like, it's like I've done this before.
We now come to our recurring questions that I ask every guest,
Go
Mr.
on.
Emmanuel Olusanya. So, first of all, your art of the week, a piece of art that has moved you, you've enjoyed, whatever this week.
Oh, yeah, it is a limited series. It's called Carol and the End of the World. It's an animated TV show on Netflix that it's 10 episodes, half an hour long. And I was not thinking I would be enjoying it all because I was like, I think I'm done with all this like post-apocalyptic
Yeah.
kind of thing. But it was so poignant at times. This is a woman who, I mean, hopefully you guys watch it, but she struggled with identity, and I think a thing of purpose really came into it. Um, and I'll just leave. There was like a really good quote that was said in one of the episodes where they were looking through all these lost and found items in the office. The world's about to end in a couple of months because of this other planet that's about to crash into the universe, into Earth. And there's these people who are still living this life. And she says one thing of like, sometimes you just need things. Sorry, sometimes yeah. Sometimes you just got to give things time to be lost for them to be found again.
Mm.
And it was so, when she said it, I literally had to rewind I was like, wait, go back, because
Yeah.
the episode wasn't even about that. It was about these lost and found items. Someone was trying to find a brooch, for them. And it coming out of that was just beautiful. And I think it was like, wow, it just really tied into a lot of things that I'm thinking now. I've got a lot of time to think right now. And I was like, yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah.
That's brilliant, man. I know. Do you know what streaming platform it's on?
Netflix. Yeah.
Netflix. Cool. Lovely. My art of the week is I'm a huge Martin Scorsese fan, and there are a few Martin Scorsese films I haven't seen, but one
Mm.
of them was Casino, and I watched that for the first time this week, and it's so good. I mean, Sharon Stone is brilliant in it. I'd seen Fatal Attraction, but I hadn't seen her in many other things, but she's brilliant in that. It's
Mm.
interesting seeing De Niro play a character who is more of the straight guy rather than the sort of scary guy. He's the guy trying to sort of handle everything. He's a bit straight laced and that, which you don't often see him as.
Yeah.
And then Joe Pesci's just Joe Pesci, the same character he plays in every film, but it's brilliant
Classic.
and he's
Classic.
great.
Yeah.
And I
Classic.
knew I knew it was good because it's about 3 hours long and it went like that, which is always a good sign
Mm.
for me. So yeah, Casino by Martin Scorsese.
I'm gonna put that on my list now. I've got a
Yeah,
list. Have
it's
you
on.
got a list where you collate things? And now I'm like, oh,
Oh, I
okay.
do. I've got a list of
Yeah.
everything like albums, podcast, yeah, all that stuff, all that stuff. It's
No.
on Prime Video at the moment.
Oh,
If you,
perfect.
yeah, yeah. So, and your artist spotlight of the week. If there's one artist you think everyone should know about, who is it?
And I do too.
You can do two. Absolutely.
Yes.
I'll be kind.
Yes. Go on, get in. Okay.
You've charmed me.
Thank you, man. Moms. I would say, all right. So first, he's a good mate of mine. He's called Karim the Peasant. My goodness, he is phenomenal. He is from East London, rapper, artist. He just recently dropped a new album, A Short Trip into the Red Sun.
What a
Phenomenal.
great
Like,
title.
yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, even alone, that's the
Yeah.
album title. But if you look at the stuff he's made before with like the trap beats and stuff, but how he's now evolved, I'm like, he is going to be phenomenal. He's had a few like shout outs on radio and stuff, but highly recommend Karim the Peasant, A Short Trip into the Red Sun. And then second one, I mean, if you guys don't know about Masego, it's like, yeah, just Masego, man. Like, I love that guy. I think I'm going to see him next month as well. He's a multifaceted musician. He sings, plays the saxophone. He plays, I think he plays the piano, the drums as well, if I'm correct. But yeah, like he is phenomenal. His
One of those
music,
annoyingly talented people, it's like this is a
yeah,
bit much now.
yeah, exactly. But then he's got the suave of the 80s, 90s silk shirt era.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
it's yeah, he's good. I'm very excited to see him next month. So
Where's
Masego and
he?
Karim the Peasant.
Where are you seeing him?
Ali Pali,
Ali
Alexandra
Pali,
Pali.
big venue
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
I
yeah,
like
yeah.
Ali Pali a lot.
So
It's good.
it's gonna be mega. Like I'm very excited. His new album, self-titled as well. It hits me different. I love that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, fabulous, man. Thank you. My art. Oh, I might choose two. No, I'm not because I have to pick an artist spotlight every episode, so I'm gonna leave it to one.
Yeah.
I was gonna pick a different one, but actually, as we spoke a bit at the start about like soul music and gospel music, they're not gospel, but it's soul. I was listening again to the Shy Lights this week. And Oh Girl by the Shy Lights is one of my favorite songs. And they're just brilliant, just like 70s soul, fantastic. So I'm gonna go for the Shy Lights. That's for any listeners out there, it's CHILITES, American soul group from the
Okay.
70s.
Shy Lights. I'm writing it down.
Yeah, man, give
I
them
was
a
like, so
listen.
how do
Yeah.
you expect
Yeah.
CH? Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh Girls are what a good one to start. It's a gorgeous song. Just brilliant.
Perfect.
Um and so I I don't send it. I'm a bit sneaky here because I send these recurring questions and then I leave some out because I want you to be
You
not think of
saboteur.
it. But what does it mean to you to be an artist? What makes a great artist?
Oh, oh, wow.
Mm.
You're good. You're good. You're good. What makes a great artist? I think what makes a great artist is without it without it sounding too cheesy, I just think someone who's willing to accept what is, and is able to, and with that and within that parameter, able to take us beyond. And I just believe, yeah, to be able to like be like, okay, this is what I'm being given now, and work with that and be malleable, but at the same time still have that rigor and like rigidness of, like the training and
Yeah,
all the expertise.
the
It's
craft.
like
Mm.
I never got to see him, which was gutting, but I know a mate of mine went to go and see Jerusalem, like Mark Rylance,
Yeah, I saw it
things like
last year.
this, and
Mm.
you know, it's phenomenal just to be able to see work like that. But yeah, I definitely say that. Yeah.
There's something about that performance, like Mark Rylance in that, where he's just breaking the boundaries of what you think acting in the theater can be or could be. It's like
Mm,
completely transformative, and I mean, it helps that the play's fantastic as well. There's
of
something
course.
bigger than about that play. There's some, I mean, it's like at the end, I won't give
Did
it
you
away,
see it?
but there's just a bit where, yeah, I saw it last year. Yeah. I actually auditioned to understudy for one of them. I didn't get it. But to be fair, I would have, there was no understudy run, so I'd have just been sat in a dressing room for 6 months. But hey,
Yeah,
would have been a cool credit. Would have got to meet Mark
wow.
Rylance.
Oh wow. Oh my God.
um, do you have an artistic role model or artistic role models?
Hmm.
You can give a couple if you want a few.
Artistic role model. I would say, yeah, I would say. I mean, I grew up almost watching, rewatching, watching scenes of Denzel for a
Mm.
long time. That was like, I remember old school things that people don't even talk about, like The Preacher's Wife with Denzel in, or like stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's like it's in like, yeah, he's a massive, massive role model for me, and always has been. And right now, yeah, I think he still is. He still is.
Mm.
No one has really been able to tip him off that, to be fair. I think I also just like looking at people of my similar age bracket as well, like Daniel Kaluuya
Mhm.
as well. He's just blazing it right now with, how he's now bleeding into directing with The Kitchen he's just done. I really need to see that. But yeah, I think I like that as well. So
Mm.
yeah, Daniel and
It's
Denzel.
so interesting. I was watching, and I haven't watched it for ages, but I'm working on a scene from it. Because Daniel Kaluuya was one of the writers on Skins when it originally came out, but he also, and I'd forgotten it, was a cameo role in a few episodes, and his
Yeah,
character was called Posh Kenneth. And I
yeah,
was
Posh Kenneth, and he was like,
Posh.
"Hello, hello," bit of a, and
Sorry, got a
then
bit carried away there. Yeah,
like,
and I
"Yeah,
saw
bro,
that the other day.
sorry, got a bit, yeah." Like
I
I
forgot about that. I
remember,
saw it the other day. I was like, "That's Daniel Kaluuya."
yeah, Daniel Kaluuya is mate. Yeah, that's when I first clocked him, and I was like, "This guy's cool."
Yeah.
I've even got in my room, I've got a little, um, like a postcard photo of when he did Sucker Punch, and that is like by far one of my favorite plays ever.
Yeah.
So he's got the rope where he's
Yeah.
like doing jump rope, and it's phenomenal. Yeah,
Would have been funny if he'd gone up to accept the Oscar as Posh Kenneth. That would have been fun.
if he had done that, I think all of the UK he would have got knighted like the next.
uh, um, one thing you are grateful for this week, Emmanuel. One
Ooh,
thing that's made you grateful.
one thing that's made me grateful. One thing that's made me grateful is definitely my people around me, my close ones. They know who they are, but like I think genuinely recognizing, who those people are, and I think now getting to a point where, I can meet someone and it's almost like we have met before,
Mhm.
and we get on, and everything is there's nothing untoward, there's nothing sinister behind it. We just connect so well from the get-go. But yeah, this week has been a lot of that. I've been speaking to a lot of good mates, and yeah, I think just meeting good souls as well. I was recently in Cardiff as well, just for a R&D project, and just met a lot of really, really cool people that I'll
Mhm.
definitely keep in touch with.
That's wicked, man. That's
Yeah.
wicked. I think I'm grateful this week for people taking a chance on me with the podcast. So thank you. And I've also, I made a New Year's resolution to write one letter a week to people that I think will either ignore it or immediately say no. And I've written 3 so far this year. All have gotten back to me, and 2 have said yes. So it's like if you don't ask,
indeed.
you don't get. And
Yeah,
I'm really grateful that, you know, they, because we're not a massive podcast yet, and so to hear, for them to hear my idea and go, yeah, I'll do that, is
yeah.
really, really lovely. So I'm super grateful for that. We've sort of gone into it a little bit, but if there was one thing you could change about the industry, what would it be? I suppose we went more about with drama school than the industry, but
Mm. I mean, just get back to me and let me know if I got the gig.
yes or no. Fucking
No.
hell. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it depends what you're working with, but I think at the same time, it's like, yeah, I would say right now, yeah, I don't know actually in terms of the industry right now. I am still getting back into the swing of it all after the strike and such. So it's been quite an interesting one. But I would say if there was one thing to change, I don't know. I think doing more open auditions or doing more like open workshops and stuff, because it's all well and good seeing shows with the same people in many a times, but I just feel there's just so much, and not even just speaking from myself as well,
Mm,
but I think there's just so much talent out there which is yet to be discovered, you know?
completely. Yeah.
And yeah, maybe that's like a slight liberal, whatever you want to call it. It's like, yeah, but I think it would be, yeah, I think that would really allow people to be seen properly.
Mm.
Yeah,
And it's
and
interesting, isn't it?
get
Because I
rooms.
think actually the industry has this weird thing of that they're very reticent to take a chance on new talent. But
Mm.
actually, what people that actually pay the money to see shows or watch TV, they want to see new faces. They enjoy it. I mean, even like I was talking to my auntie the other week, and she's nothing to do with this industry, but she's like, I'm sick of seeing the same faces on telly all the time. The same, you know. I especially feel sorry for like if you're an actress above the age of 40, because there's about three in the UK who play every lead role in every ITV and BBC drama. And like,
Yeah,
it's like, so
yeah,
it's this weird disconnect between the industry not wanting to take a chance on people, but the viewer really savoring that. And I love that when you go to the theatre and you see someone you haven't seen before and they're wicked. It's like, yes, where did you come from? That's great.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I
Yeah,
agree.
exactly.
Mm, yeah. Um, this is another difficult. Well, it shouldn't be a difficult one, but I think it is when you this. But what makes you happy?
Boy, oi.
Hey.
What makes me dear. What makes me happy? Uh no, I know this question actually. This doesn't, yeah. I think what makes me happy is right now I'm just really I happy from like achieving these small tasks, from getting the little things done, because the big goal and the big picture is always there, and you know the end goal and the vision is so well and truly there, but not focusing on the day by days has really been quite, has felt like, oh, I'm not there yet. But I
Yeah.
think recently I've just started to, yeah, take that into account and wake up every morning and be like, okay, what is it? How can I be better from yesterday?
Yeah, that's the
How can
way.
I be? What
Mm,
else can I do that's better from yesterday? What else can I learn through editing that's better from yesterday? What else can I, or even best, it's like, how can I find a new way to actually rest and decompress?
mm.
Do you know? And I think that's really been a thing of like, yeah, because I think self-love is such a cool thing, you know. People, we don't do it enough because the grind and you need to hustle is so normalized that
Mm,
when you're like, oh yeah, today I actually just chilled.
mm.
You know, people are like, oh, you weren't
No,
pushing.
and you need that time again, as you say, to to be able to process stuff that's happened. And as a creative, that's really important, as you say, fill in that creative well so you've got
Yeah,
stuff to work with. You can't just be on all the time, because we do some of our greatest thinking when we are sort of, you know, relaxed and chilling, and then stuff
exactly.
suddenly comes to you. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I find that makes some of my greatest work when I'm in the shower.
Yeah,
I've got
it's always the
I've
way.
got a
Or like,
hook.
yeah, there it is. Oh man, We were in a play together technically. You
Oh
were
yeah,
you were the
yeah.
voice of my dead friend, so I never actually appeared on stage with you. But I heard you every night. But I hope one day we'll get to work together properly, man.
Come on, man. Me too, man. Come on,
Yeah,
Lambda, Lambda represent.
it's been a pleasure having you on, man. As I say, really respect you. You're not
Appreciate
just
it.
a great artist, but you're a great human being. And tell the lovely listeners about all the stuff you got going on and all the stuff that they should hear and watch and all that stuff.
Oh, well, get ready, guys.
Here we go.
So when does this episode come out, by the way?
So this will probably come out because I'm getting a few in the bag.
Yeah.
Probably not until March, early March, I would say. Mm.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, defo, if you haven't heard us talk about it already, defo check out the Crunch Time podcast, guys. It's on my Instagram at Eman Loving Life, EMMANLOVIN Life. Yeah, just check us out. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming out. We have just got a recent artist that we've had on who that will be our February episode, so you can definitely check that out. Apart from that, I'll definitely be dropping some music around March time. So
Mm.
stay tuned, you know.
And check out all the music he's already got up there as well. That's the
Check out the
thing.
Spotify. Everything's on the Instagram. If you follow that, you'll get the keys to the kingdom.
We'll put Emmanuel's Instagram handle in the episode notes just so you can see all that. But
Well,
Emmanuel, thank you so much, mate. I really appreciate it, and I'm
thank you.
sure the listeners
It's
are
been a
going to enjoy.
really fun one. This has been my first like podcast like interview thing. So thank you, bro. This has been really sick.
Been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on, mate.